Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live, sponsored by CG Professional. Now, I'm James Batchelor, and thank you very much for joining us for these live broadcasts on the Car Dealer channel every single week. Now, today on the show, we're talking about mental health and the things we as an industry need to be thinking about in the run-up to showrooms reopening on April the 12th, but not just that, in general as well. Now, in the rush to throw open car showroom doors and drive through sales, there's the danger staff mental health could be overlooked, something that could have serious repercussions. Now, joining me to chat more about this is Steve Whitten, founder of the movement Menable, and he joins me now. Hello, Steve.
Hi, James. How are you doing?
I am very, very well, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on.
That's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for asking me. That was brilliant.
No, it's lovely to have you on because this, like I said in my intro there, it's something that I think we're all very aware of, increasingly so over the past 12 months. But it's also one of those things that's very easy just to sort of put to one side and focus on the big issues at stake at the moment, which of course, as we know, is showrooms reopening on April the 12th. So it's lovely to have you on to talk more about this. Just before we actually get stuck into that, I think it's probably worth talking a little bit more about the organisation, because for some people watching, they won't have heard of you really. So could you just give us a bit of an explanation of what Menable is, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're fairly recently formed, to be fair, in the late summer of last year, off the back of some personal stuff that I was experiencing. I got together with some trusted friends and coaches and counsellors. When I say got together, all virtual, of course. And we talked about actually, you know what, we know the motor industry, we know the car industry of old. I've been around 35 years or so. I can't possibly be the only guy of a certain age that's had issues and put a bit of a lid on it. And when we went out there and did some social media stuff, we're absolutely inundated with responses and people saying, wow, yeah, you've touched a nerve here. And as you said, with the pandemic, you know, everything's kind of risen to the forefront, if you like. So we created something, and I've got to say, originally it was intended to be a sort of support network for men, because the industry is male dominated. And of course, we wanted to enable them to talk openly about mental health, because us guys are very good at keeping a lid on stuff. And so with a bit of work on the branding and the marketing, we came up with Menable. But since then, things have moved on quite a bit. And the M now really properly stands for sort of mental health and enablement across the entire sector, because we've realized that it's not just men of a certain age that have issues, it's pretty much everyone, and ladies as well, and we have a good proportion of females sort of within the organization as ambassadors and so on. So yeah, we're in a good growing place, and it feels good to be coming to the industry with something that's starting to raise awareness, to be fair.
Yeah. And you touched upon it there. I mean, part of this is a personal story as well. I mean, I was reading your blog on the Menable website. I mean, fascinating reading. So there is a bit of a personal tale to this as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. You know, I grew up in an era where you didn't really talk about anything that was going on for you. You know, we never really talked much about anxieties and issues and concerns. And, you know, grew up with a lot of what I realize now was sort of traumatic experiences from childhood and teenage years and so on. Piece all of that together, and what I realize is that all of those things are like a Lego wall. You know, it builds up and builds up over years and years, and you just become more and more well practiced at putting a lid on it. And anyone who knows me in my sort of my proper former life, if you like, as a trainer and presenter and speaker, you know, and I had a few people who said, well, wow, this isn't the Steve Whitten that we know, who's, you know, the jazz hands presenter who can do an awards show in front of 500 people. And I said, yeah, but the bit that people don't realize is that all of that stuff was contributing to me being the guy who would be revved up on stage, but come off stage to a rapturous round of applause, but I'd find that one individual in the auditorium who was staring at me as if to say, what are you talking about? And that surprised people. And I said, that's just, you know, how I've coped really over the years, is that the you know, the confidence and the humor has kind of carried me through.
Yeah.
And I did some work around that with car salespeople actually, and found that that's actually a pretty fair thing that happened. I wouldn't say fair, but it's happens a lot amongst car salespeople. There's a lot of sort of bravado and a lot of overt confidence that actually isn't the real them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and anyway, all of that came to a head last year, and at the same time as the pandemic, declaring stuff to my family that then took me down a route that I really didn't want to go down. And I got to the middle of the year, I have to say, and there were a few days around May, June time where I thought, I don't really want to be a part of this planet anymore. It's really starting to get to me, and I caught myself sort of looking in the mirror one day and burst into tears, and I just thought, no, that really isn't me. That is not the real me. I need to get some help. And so I reached out and I got into the system, and I found very quickly that at that point, you have pretty much two choices, and that is you pay privately for counselling, which can be, £50 to £500 an hour. I was lucky I was in the position to be able to pay for some of that to begin with. Or you go into the NHS provision, which, assuming you get a doctor's appointment, and once you do, it's then a 4-week referral to the IPEC team, and then you get in front of them, and the next thing is 12, 16 weeks later, you're in front of a counsellor. And I sat back, and with my trusted friends and colleagues, I thought to myself, no, I know full well there are a lot of people out there who need some help, and they need it now, and they need the support. And then that took us down the route of thinking about the culture side of it. So yeah, my own, real personal experience was what drove it, was what caused me to start in the first place. I still refer back to it, when I talk to people quite a bit, but I try my hardest now not to talk about it too much, because I think, that almost means that you end up reliving it as well. And I've learned tons, I have to say, through all of this, and moved to a position now of sort of purpose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate you opening up and telling your story, and I think the interesting thing from what you were saying there is we are all working in an industry that does put on a show. I mean, the very nature of selling a car, especially a new car, you are fulfilling somebody's dream, aren't you? And you are creating a show, you're creating a spectacle, and in many ways, it's not real life. The whole process of buying a car is not real life. The interactions between a customer and a salesperson, can quite often not be real life. Probably exacerbated by the fact in the past 12 months that people have had to do this virtually as well. You've got to have a virtual walk around of a car. You've got to buy that car online, and all of that does influence this feeling that this industry we work in is a bit of a spectacle, a bit of a show, isn't it?
It can be, and I think that's it does require an element of extroversion, if that's being an extrovert, if that's the right way to put it. And and I think there are a lot of people who are very, very good at that, and I've spent a lifetime training them to do that sort of stuff. But I think there's a key issue sitting in the background, and that is that there's a couple of things at play. One is we are a mass production industry, and when you have companies that mass produce a product, you want an outlet for them, and you're going to expect targets and objectives, and some of that can be a bit tough and a bit harsh, and that's fine when the market's good and everything's going well. But if things start to slide or happen in a different way, that puts pressure on people. I think the other thing as well is that we are a diagnostic business, and so we diagnose and fix people's transportation problems, and then when they go wrong, we diagnose and fix what's wrong with them and put them through the workshop and fix them. And I think it was Russell Kane on Jonathan the Ross show over Christmas who said, not relating to the motor industry, but guys in particular, we have this kind of mentality that actually, if we can't fix something, let's not bother talking about it. So whereas ladies will talk about stuff, it's just a different makeup, that they'll talk about things for no reason necessarily at all, and they'll get to a conclusion eventually. And so I think, for me, you put all of that together, and I look back over those many years in the industry, and I think, yeah, it is about being a showman. It's about being an actor. And of course, that's fine while you're able to keep that up. But as we know, with many people who are actors and who are comedians and people in the public eye, have openly spoken about the fact that, you know, what you see on stage, what you see in front of you know, an audience is not necessarily the real them. And I think what we've identified in the work and the conversations that we've done so far is that that is actually, you know, fairly prevalent.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think, you know, if you've got a team of blokes all working in one showroom or one building, whatever, and none of them are opening up, you've got a bit of a problem there, haven't you? And it's got the potential to actually blow up quite badly at some point. But let's just talk about the last 12 months now. You know, it's very easy to look at the pandemic from a financial perspective, how much it's cost the country, how much, you know, the loss in car sales and the revenue that's generated from that. That's all of that is hugely important, as we know, but it's very easy to forget the mental health issue as well. How would you describe the last 12 months for people in the automotive industry?
I think what it's created is a huge amount of uncertainty. You know, and I think as a species, we like stability and we like steadiness. You know, some more than others. You know, and that varies obviously. What I would say is that, you know, mental health is not something new. It's not a new phenomenon. It's been there forever. You know, we've always had it. We've always had mental health, just as we've always had physical health.
Mm.
You know, we've always had if you walk into a business one day with a broken leg or, you know, a cut to your hand, people will say, oh, what happened to you? And we, you know, we openly talk about it. The mental health stuff has always been kept private. It's been kept to, you know, in our own sort of space, if you like. And I think what the last 12 months has done has caused an awful lot of people, you know, if you've been furloughed, perhaps you've had more time at home, you've had time with the family, you've had time to reconsider, reevaluate what you're all about, what you really want out of life. And I know I'm not just talking for myself here, because, you know, I get phone calls virtually every day from people saying, wow, you know, over the last 3 months I've been furloughed and I've really now started to think, what do I actually want? Do I want to work in this fast-paced environment? But I love working with cars and I love the company I work for and love the people I work with, but I just want it to be different. I don't want, you know, the normal that we talked about before is not the normal I want again, you know. And I was talking to Adam Turner about this last week and saying that, you know, even as daft as, you know, slipping on a pair of shoes after 3 months, it feels weird. You know, if you spent your life in trainers and boots, it suddenly feels weird to suddenly, you know, put on a suit or do something that's you know, back to what we knew as normal before.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, lots of issues have been thrown up in the air. Of course, with the pandemic, there's been the, you know, the scary side of, well, what if I get it? What if a member of my family gets it? You know, clearly some people have lost loved ones or know someone who's had it. You know, so I think you put all of that together, and there's a huge melting pot there of anxiety, of uncertainty, of, you know, what's actually going on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick note: this is a live show. If anybody's got a question or something they want to put to us, then feel free to put it in the comments box. Now, I think also one thing that's probably come out of last year is you mentioned the uncertainty, but it's also the stop-start nature of last year as well. What with, you know, we've had 3 lockdowns. You know, for many businesses, that's been a process of furloughing people, then bringing those people back, and possibly putting those people on furlough again. That stop-start segmented nature of the year can't have done much good for people's well-being.
No, I absolutely agree. I think the side of that I think of immediately is the fact that, as I said, we are a target and objective driven sector, and I think there is some, you know, we're all very used to the sort of annualization of how that works and the 2 big months if you're selling new cars and so on, and so I think, yeah, the stop start part of it is, you know, at first there's probably a bit of a novelty that you've got a bit of time off and you've got some time for yourself if you've been furloughed. But then when you go back, there's almost, and I know I hear these stories all the time from particularly sales managers and sales execs, that it's sort of, you know, let's fling the doors open and go back and start again as though nothing's happened. But by the way, you've got 4, 5, 6 weeks worth of sales to make up. And I think it is that sort of, I'm not into physical fitness, but I think there's a style of exercise, which is you sort of do 30 seconds and then stop for a breather. And it probably feels a bit like that, it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's sort of look towards that April the 12th date of showrooms in England reopening. People listening to this, I'm sure they've got a lot of understanding of what you've been talking about there. What can people be doing personally? Are there things that people can be doing themselves to actually ready themselves for going back to work?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's very easy. I think I said just before we started that, let's not dwell on the sort of down or negative side of mental health, because, I think we're still in that phase of seeing the words mental health, and there's a bit of, oh, here we go again, everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. The reality of it is there is a very positive side to mental health as well. And it's actually our mental health in a lot of cases that drives us. Now, on the one hand, I could be seen as a bit of a critic for the industry, and then other people say, but you've been around 35 years, so it can't be that bad. So I think to myself, well, no, because actually there's some amazing people in the sector. There are some fantastic companies to work for. It is exciting. It can be glamorous. And we do have some fun. And when you're interacting with the general public, in the main, that can be amazing. And there are some lovely, lovely people out there, and lots of people who say, I've got these fantastic bunch of customers and so on. So I think for me, it's about, kind of remembering why you do it. I would ask and urge all businesses to reaffirm, let's talk about the why. Let's talk about why is it we're actually in business? Why are we selling cars or servicing cars in this particular town? What is it we're trying to achieve? Let's get everybody bought back in on the purpose. And I know that sounds a bit deep, meaningful, philosophical, but a lot of people will get that. The purpose of, if your purpose is to go into a business just purely to make the shareholders money, then it's a job. And I know that there are a lot of people saying, well, if that's the case, I might as well go and drive a van for Amazon or deliver food for Tesco's. I don't want to just do that. And so there are lots of things that people can do to ready themselves for that. And I think what we're seeing is it boils down to communication, it's support, and I think when you get those things kind of right and you start opening up and talking to people, you realize that actually that there's not a massive amount that we have to do to get people's mindsets just right, and accept the fact that there are going to be some people who will go, well, I've just spent the last 3 months watching Netflix. And there'll be other people who go, I can't wait to get back to work. What is this homeschooling and being a home business all about? I can't be doing with that. And so the key is for leaders and managers to set the right cultural temperature, if you like, in their business. And I think the key part of that is communication. And, it's not bashing people over the head about targets and, being harsh and so on with them. And it's also accepting that mental health picture is going to look different for every single person. There is no one size fits all. And I'll give you an example. One of our great members who's just come on board is Super Mini, a fabulous little business run by Matt Clark. And he literally, about an hour before we started this, I got a parcel come through the door, and it's some mugs, and it's got their logo on one side and the Menable logo on the other side with and I thought, well, the timing of that is brilliant. And, for having me drink out of that while I'm on here with you. And I just thought, it doesn't, that's maybe a daft example, but it doesn't take much, does it, to, just, do something that sort of says to your team, look, we value you. You've got a purpose. You're all about, let's come back and make it fun and make it interactive and make it enjoyable. At Christmas, there was an organization that sent all of their team a selection box just to say, look, we're thinking of you. And that probably cost £4 or £5 per head. By contrast, there was another organization. I have a friend in who I wrote to them and said, what did you get for Christmas? And they came back and said, I had to work my day off and I got a whole load of stress. So you think, it doesn't take much to just stop and think, right, What do we just need to do to accept? Some people are gagging to get back to work. Other people are like, oh, my trousers don't fit anymore. or whatever it might be, and I think, there's tons of stuff out there that individuals can do for themselves. But I think as an organization, you have a responsibility for your team's well-being and working with them and encouraging them to come back, but not doing that thing that I predicted in a couple of vlogs that I've recently done, which is 12th of April, fling open the doors, dust off the cars, and crack on like nothing's happened.
Yeah, you make some fantastic points, and I think the dealer group you mentioned about the selection boxes, I think that was Marshall Motor Group, or I know Marshall did do something similar to that. And there are dealers who are taking a very proactive view of this. I think, for instance, Chorley Group, I think they're actually going to be closed on April the 12th.
Oh, well, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I was talking. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm correcting that. It's sort of saying to employees, look, as a mark that you've been working incredibly hard over the last year, let's actually have the day off. And I think that is the point, isn't it? We're all in this together, really. And like you just said about the mug, putting two names together there, we are all in this together. And
absolutely.
I know it's quite easy to look at this from an individual's perspective, but if you look at this from a CEO's perspective, or a line manager or a sales manager's perspective, it's not just about getting the right mentality for April the 12th, but it's also for the past year they've had to, keep people going. They've had to put people on furlough. For those managers in the organisation, it's quite a challenge, isn't it? Getting people back to work and getting the right mindset for everybody.
It is 100%. And we're all about, and we've said many times that, our key mantra is giving you back effective employees. And, I've had a lifetime in the training and learning side of it in the automotive industry. And the easiest thing in the world would be to do a course or do a workshop or, run everyone through some kind of event that revs everyone up. And our belief is, it doesn't need that. It needs a commitment from the top, 100%. So, in everyone we deal with, we're talking to CEOs, and it needs a commitment from them. And then that message translates and dissipates through the business, without, being changed or interpreted as a very, very clear message that, look, this is something that we need to be aware of and give people time and space and support, and help and coach them.
Yeah.
And as a couple of examples, on the negative side, forgive me, but there, earlier on in the year, I was talking to one service manager who said that out of their team of 20, they know that 9 people in that team are struggling with some form of mental health related issue. Now that's anxiety is brought about by stress, debt, relationships, compulsive behaviors, limited self-belief, lack of self-esteem, whatever it might be, many, many issues. And on the other hand, I had another manager who said to me, I've actually now stopped asking my team how they are because I don't know how to handle the answer. If they come back with something other than the traditional British, I'm fine, I'll be all right, or yeah, it's just the same stuff, different day.
Yeah, grumble. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. A typical British response. And he said, I genuinely don't know how to deal with an answer that comes back, no, I really need some help. And 2, I don't have the time in my busy, process-driven, target-oriented day to go, okay, let's go and have 10 minutes in the car park, or let's go and sit and have a coffee and let's have a chat. And, and I think for me, what we've got to do in preparation for the 12th of April is get managers and leaders and everyone who has that responsibility for other people to just be aware and be prepared that, it's not just going to be a fling the doors open and suddenly, nothing's happened in the last 12 months.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I also think, it's very easy to look at this from a car dealer's or retail perspective. There are also repercussions here for the brands and the big OEMs. We've heard stories of OEMs still insisting on targets are still met even during lockdowns. And so there's a wider point here. It's not just the immediate car sales business. It's the wider circle, isn't it? Everybody needs to be helping each other out and saying, look, we're all in this together, and we all need to give each other a bit of time to actually sort of get back to some kind of normality.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I heard the same stories. You know, I had one in particular, you don't know how anecdotal it was, but that after the first lockdown, you know, the story was, well, you've had 3 months off, but you're still expected to hit your 12-month target.
Yeah.
You know, and having spent a small amount of time as a DP, I just think, oh, that's the reason why I haven't got any hair anymore. because of things like that. And that just drives you, you know, and it's spreadsheet driven, and it's targets and it's objectives, and you know, and I think you're absolutely right. Everyone's just got to go, whoa, okay, you know, we've had a massive shock. You know, this is nothing we've experienced before. I was trying not to use the word unprecedented there, because I'm trying to eradicate that from my vocabulary. I'm sick of that word, but it's stuff none of us have experienced before. I heard somebody the other day describe it as World War III, effectively. And you think, well, actually, you know, from what it's cost the nation kind of, you know, sort of thing, it's probably not far off. So, you know, it's been a real shock. And I think April 12th and onwards, we genuinely do need to now be going, you know, actually, what was normal before doesn't represent what's going to be normal going forward. And actually, there's another element in there as well, which is our customers, you know, and a lot of this will be driven by customers changing expectations, you know, and what they want. And so it's a real time to sit back and get the strategic map out and work out where do we go from here, guys?
Yeah. And I think you make a great point. You know, we're rightly so, we're focused on April the 12th, but this is, you know, this is not just one date. It's what's happened in the past 12 months, and in general has opened up many problems, and we should be sort of looking beyond April the 12th. And April the 12th is just the start, really. Well, we hope of better times. Anybody who's listening to this, I mean, what's your advice to them, whether they're an employee or a manager? Is the first thing to actually make contact with a line manager or with colleagues saying, look, I'm struggling here, I'd like to have a conversation? Is that the first point of call, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the key bit is making sure that the business has the culture that makes that okay. You know, and then that's about really enabling, hence the enable part of our name, but enabling managers to have the emotional intelligence, the communication skills, the strength of character to be able to say, actually, yeah, I do need to, you know, I need to deal with this person slightly different to how I deal with that person, and you know, allow them the time and space to reach to me. I do have a firm belief that actually because I know there's been a lot of emphasis around mental health is, well, what do we do in the event of someone having a crisis? For me, our 3-year roadmap that we're working on with our members is that in 2 to 3 years' time, if you have someone that's got to crisis before they reach out, you've left it too late. You know, your culture has not grabbed that person and had that person, you know, able to come to you and say, you know, I do need some help, and I'm struggling, and this is what I'm struggling with. On that note, I did have, you know, early doors, we bounced this off some people, and I actually did have somebody say, well, you know, if you show that you care too much, people will start taking the proverbial, to which I have to say I was shocked. I just thought, wow, I can't believe that attitude still exists. That, you know, the reality, well, let's step back and look in the mirror, you know, let's have a look at how do you interact with your people? What does your culture do that causes somebody to feel that they have to swing the lead in order to give themselves time and space to deal with whatever it is they're dealing with? Now, you know, clearly there's the manager. It is shocking, and it knocked me off balance, I have to say, because I was like, wow, you know, and because all it involves is people reaching out and knowing that it's okay to just pick up the phone and go, look, you know, there's a reason why I've got a target of 12 this month, but I've only hit 6, you know, so don't bash me over the head because I'm not hitting my target and call me names and make me embarrassed in front of everyone else, because that's actually not making it any better. You know, I need to talk to you and say, look, this is what's going on for me. And it could be a myriad of things.
Yeah, I think that is shocking, and it dovetails with what a lot of we're seeing this week in the news headlines, which is, you know, if people open up, you know, a lot of people's first reaction is they're not telling the truth, or they're sort of inflating issues which should just be kept inside and not spoken about. So it is absolutely fascinating. And I suppose the shout out really is, if people want to find out more, get in touch with you guys. So, how do people get in touch with you?
You may be surprised to know that I'm all over LinkedIn. I can't stop it. I think I'm addicted. Something else I might need some help with later on. But so you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Stephen J. Whitten.
Yeah.
And of course, Menable is menable.org is the name of the website. And we, pretty much everything at the moment comes straight through to me. So, I'd love to have conversations with what I would consider to be progressive and enlightened employers. And, we've got people coming on board in the membership as well. And a sort of a byproduct that's happened is the network that we're creating as well, of like-minded people who are saying, I agree with this. This is the ethos that we need in our industry. It's a brilliant place to be. We've got some fantastic people. Let's support them. And so through Menable, we're kind of connecting people that wouldn't ordinarily have been connected, and some great stuff's happening out of that. So by all means, Stephen J. Whitten on LinkedIn or menable.org.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, that's all we've got time for today, unfortunately, Steve. But it'd be nice to sort of get back in contact a little bit later in the year and see how things are going. And hopefully some of the issues that we've spoken about, aren't quite so sort of prevalent. But here's hoping anyway. But
exactly.
But for today, thanks so much for coming on. It's been an absolute eye-opener and real privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great. Thanks very much.
That's it for today's Car Dealer Live. If you'd like to be on a show like this one, then please do contact me, james.batchelor@blackballmedia.co.uk. But for today, thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.